Welcome back, guys. It's part 18 of X3 Albion Prelude, the Star Wars Reborn mod. Now, this is actually my second time doing this part. I actually did it, edited it, and uploaded it, but I had a couple things wrong. I was trying to get too much into one video, and so I'm just going to redo this. Especially when it comes to actually doing the supplying the player headquarters. I was way off on that. I had the wrong type and everything. So anyways, I'm redoing this. So I do apologize if you did see the last version. But yeah, it's just going to be better with me redoing this. So part 17 got the player headquarters that can build ships, reverse engineer and build ships. But of course, I need there's 10 items that the headquarters needs to build ships. So I want to set up an automatic system so that I don't need to manually tell anyone or manually transport stuff. And especially when you grow, you want everything as automatic as possible. So now, unlike the first attempt at this, I'm going to split up with your CLS and CAG pilots. I'm going to split up the CLS MK1 and the CLS MK2 on this video, and then I'm going to actually do the CAG or the commercial agents on another part, on the next part. That way I don't try. Hopefully I won't miss anything, and maybe be a little bit more organized. And the video is going to be long because the first attempt, it was shorter than it should have been. That's why I missed a few things. I was trying to cram it in, but anyways, so this video is going to be a lot of talking. I'm not even going to move my ship, but I'm going to show you how to set up like a logistics supply chain, and this part's going to be for more internal stuff for your empire, and so it's going to be the commodity logistics MK1, which is internal, and the MK2, which is external. So first of all, starting off between the two, the external means you're dealing with NPC stations and factories in some way. Internal means you're just dealing with your internal empire, your owned property. So starting off with the player headquarters, well, first of all, I need to talk about in this game there's for stations. Well, really, stations measure like volume of units one way, and your player headquarters measures it a different way. So what I mean by that is if you go into like any station besides your player headquarters, and if you go down here, like those storage stations, I can have every item in the game stored there. The way it limits its cargo is there's an amount limit per item. So if you see here, it's 1250 out of 1250. This is 0 out of 624. And those limits are set by the game. All right. And so it doesn't really matter about cargo space in this case. It's just about the amount limit. Now, your player headquarters, what you do is you can set those limits. So as far as the item amount limits, depending on what you want to do. However, there's still got to be some limit, because it's not like RPG games or whatever, where in your backpack you're carrying a car, you're carrying wings, you're carrying 10 bazookas, 20 outfits, all that stuff. This is more realistic. So there's on the headquarters there's a cargo unit limit of 500,000. Okay. Not an amount item limit like all the other stations. Okay, so what you need to do is with the player headquarters is you first of all kind of need to know, you need to find out like for me, well, first of all, what you do is when you get your player headquarters, there is none of these items on the list. Okay, you have to add the items. All right, and the way you do that, and you go into your command console, just like any ship or anything like that. You go into your command console. Now here, you can go to any slot because the dock manager does not take up a slot, so it doesn't really matter. You just hit enter. Now down here you see dockware manager. That's what you need to do first. Now here what you do is like I've already added all these wares, but when you first get it there will be no wares here at all. So you always need to add a ware. If a ware is not added to a station, the traders cannot trade that item. So when you try to set up your traders automatically, that item won't be on the list unless it's added on here. All right, so the list of available wares for a trader to trade with at a station, that list comes from the station. So if I needed to add a ware, I just go here to add a ware. Now, and it's broke up into different categories. Let's say I needed to add it, add Maja snails or whatever. That's how I would add that. Okay. Now, when you add the item, because your player headquarters, there is no amount limit per item. You want to set a limit because what's going to happen is when you set up automatic transports, it's going to keep on transporting that item and unloading it there until the 500,000 cargo units is full. Okay, and so you need to control how much of each item is at your headquarters because you need certain ratios and proportions of items to be able to build ships. So you don't want 500,000 cargo units of just one of these items. Now, how I got those item limits is if you go into when you start to reverse engineer a ship, it's going to come up with this. Here's the 10 items I need. Okay. Now, what it does is in the brackets, when it's building a ship, when it's in the production queue, okay, it does. It will show how much of each item that ship will need to produce it. That amount is in the brackets here. So for I'm producing Y-wings right now. So for one Y-wing, it's going to take this amount of energy cells, this much of tellurium, this much of cloth rind, this much rust or oil, and so on and so forth. So what I did was I looked at basically how much one ship would need, and what I did in this particular case is I looked at A wings, B wings, Y wings, X wings, because I want to have I want to use those in my patrols. So then I looked at, well, so how much of each item does each ship need? Okay, and I found that out for each ship, and I want to try to figure out, mass producing these. So I want to do like 10 at a time. So I just figured out, I took each ship and then I multiplied it by 10. Okay, so I knew how many of each item I needed. Well, here it tells you the volume of each unit of that item. So like one microchip actually takes up 2 cargo units. One silicon takes up 18 cargo units. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to find out if it would fit in that 500,000. So one thing with your player headquarters, don't use your player headquarters as a storage station. You only want goods there that you need to produce ships, because it's your player headquarters. Think of it as a shipyard. That's what it is. It's a shipyard. You don't want to fill up and use up those cargo units on things other than what you need to produce ships, because then you'll run out of room for the things that you need to produce ships. So you kind of want to store things in a different area, which I have. I have those storage stations that you've seen before. So anyways, getting back to this. So once I figure out, first of all, what I want to produce, and I figured out how much each one of those ships needed for each item, I figured out how much volume each is going to take, and then I used those numbers to come up with these limits in the Dockware Manager. So I can have an automatic transport transporting this stuff, and I don't have to worry about it going over this limit. Okay. Now, with that said, when there's Commodity Logistics MK1, that's internal, that can read these limits. Commodity Logistics MK2, the external, cannot read these limits. And so that was part of the mistake I did in the first part. I showed how to set it up with MK2. So what it ended up happening, and also if you go to Dockware Manager, you can see an overview of your goods that's at that station there. So what ended up happening is, because the MK2 do not see those limits, it just kept on filling stuff up. So if you see here, like cloth rhymes, I've got, to the limit that I set, I've got this amount in the station, and limit amount percentage, and as you see, that's 3,694% to what my limit is. So that's why I had to redo this video and everything, because I forgot about that part. The Dockware Manager, only commercial agents, CAGs, which I'm going to show that in the next video, how to set that up, they can see that limit, or Commodity Logistics MK1, which is the internal, can see that limit. Okay. So when you're sending supply ships to your player headquarters, you want to use MK1. All right. If for all the other stations there's already these limits set for each item, and the MK2s can see that, so you don't have to worry about that with the other stations, because they limit the cargo space held there by unit amount, while the player headquarters limits it by cargo space unit amount. All right, so it's important to understand that distinction. So now, with that said, okay, well, James, how do you set it up so you can get these transports going with MK1? Well, so that's what I'm going to show you here. So first of all, I do need to mention one thing. The way I've got my logistics set up is I've got these storage stations that limit you. It can have every item in the game at one station, fully stocked. However, each item is limited by an amount of that item. So I have the MK2 guys buying the supplies from the NPCs, and dropping it off of these storage stations. Okay. Now, what I'm going to show you right now first, though, is how to get the MK1, the internal transports, set up to pick up from these storage stations to your player headquarters. Okay, that's what I'm going to do first. So if I go down here to got a lot of ships. I'm going to use the GR75 ship because it has a bigger cargo hold than the Gazanti transport ships. However, it has less armor and less guns, but it's only going to be transferring goods within that one sector, my home sector. So I really don't have to worry about it having to defend itself. Now, on the other side, though, the Gazantis, they're the ones going out around the universe to NPC stations, buying stuff up. So that's why I chose them, even though they have a smaller cargo space. They have a lot more shields and they have a lot more firepower to be able to protect themselves if they get in a dicey situation out there in the universe. So that's why I have them doing those. Okay, so now with the internal MK1, you first of all you have to set a home base. Okay, and to me this is really backwards, and I think this is where well, really this whole kind of system is a little confusing. But it's confusing because you got so many options that you know you can set up however you want, really, in a way. But when you set up the internal commodity logistics MK1 pilots, you need to set a home base, and the home base though has to be a supplier. Okay, so the terms here to understand: a supplier is where you're picking up the goods, consumer is where you're dropping off the goods. So in this case, my player headquarters is a consumer because that's where I'm going to be dropping off the goods to, and it's going to be using those goods. The storage stations is the supplier because that's where I'm going to be picking up the goods. Supplier just means where you're going to be picking up the goods, basically, and consumers where you're going to be dropping them off. So when you set a home base for the MK1 software, the home base has to be a supplier. So in that case, since the player headquarters is a consumer, and this is where it gets kind of confusing. You cannot set this for the home base for this as the player headquarters. You have to set one. It can be any of them, like one of the storage stations. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go in here at Command Console, and I want to set the home base to just the first storage station. Okay. Now I can go into trade, and the internal commodity logistics will show here. Both the commercial agent and the internal commercial logistics will not show here unless you have a home base set for that ship. Okay. Now external will show because you don't need a home base for external. But I'm going to show you internal. So I needed a home base set first, and then go into internal. Now my trader settings, it's the same thing as all before. I'm just going to keep it taking its money, its salary from my global account. Home base products. Now, as you see here, there's nothing listed. You have to select what products you want this transport dealing in. Okay. Now, so I go in here and I add a product, and what it's doing is it's looking at all the products at that storage station, and I have to select what products I want this particular ship to deal in. Now, I want this particular ship to deal in the products needed for the player headquarters, which is those 10 resource items. So one of those is energy cells, and then it's going to ask if I want to set a price, which to me, I don't understand why. If this is an internal software, why am I going to charge a price? The only thing I can think of is if I want to try to keep costs set to the one station, so I kind of know, but I don't really care about. I don't care about all that. I don't know why you would really want to do that. So what I do is I just go ahead and go into manual, because you can set a minimum, the minimum galaxy price for the item, whatever that is. For that, it's per item. The average or the maximum. You can read about those if you want to read about those. I really don't understand why you would do that within your own empire, to be honest. So I'm going to go into manual, and I'm just going to do 0. I'm not going to have credits transferred between my own stations just to try to keep track of which one. You know, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't care about that. So now that product's added. So now I have to add to Lottie, you know, the rest of the products, and I'm just going to do 0 for the credits. I'm not going to charge my own transport from my own station, you know. Anyways, you get that. But I'm going to do it for all 10 items, okay? Because I have to tell the ship which ones to trade in, because you might not want it to trade in all the items at that station. So that's why this is an option. Roster oil or silicon. Crystals. Quantum tubes. Microchips. computer components. And is that it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, that's it. All right, so I just wanted to deal with those products. That's all the products I want to go to my headquarters. Once you add all your products, you go ahead and hit escape to get back here. Now you see products, it says 10 entries. Now these other two here, that list that I just chose from, you can sort those to help you if you got a lot of things at one place. Or here you can delete your list if you want to clear it out. These are only to organize that list that I chose from. They're not options to do anything. Right, all I'm doing right now is I'm selecting what products I want that ship to trade in. Okay, those have been added. So now I get out of that. Suppliers and consumers. Basically, don't worry about. I really think about suppliers as who you're picking up the goods from. Consumers is who you're dropping the goods off to. Okay, so if I go in here, you see supplier, there's one entry already in there, and that's my home base. That's, like I was saying, your home base has to be a supplier. So that's why I selected the storage. It's basically because I'm picking up at the storages. However, I want it to look at all the storages. So when I go, well, I went to add supplier, and then what sector, which is going to be my home sector, and then you can select all the places you want it to pick up from, and that's all my storage ones. So I'm just going to go in here, and I'm adding all my storage. Now the thing is I think it's limited to 10. Yes, it's only limited to 10. You can only have 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up 2 ships, and so one of them is going to go through 1 through 10, and the other one is going to go 3 through 12. Just so it doesn't really matter, it's just as long as all 12 stations there's a transport looking at those goods and using those goods up. That's the only thing. But unfortunately, there's a limit to 10. So I'm splitting it up between 2 ships. This one though, I'm wanting to pick up at all these storage stations. Okay, because basically every one of these storage stations has the same items. It's just because each storage station limits the amount of each item in there. I have to have more than one station. That's why I have to do that. So I got the suppliers set up. Now consumers, these are all going to one place, and that is my headquarters. Okay, so there's only one consumer, and I'm going to get out of there. So you see now I got 10 suppliers, 1 consumer. I can also delete if I need to clear things out. So I'm done with that with the suppliers and consumers. Supply conditions. Now this is minimum space filled. So what this means is it's not going to go to any one of those storage stations or suppliers unless it can go there to pick up an item that will fill up 5% of the cargo hold. Okay. I don't care. Like it's basically the idea is you can control that so that the trip, you can set it up so it won't go unless the trip is worthwhile for what you want. And in this particular case, it's in the same sector. It's not jumping or using east energy cells, and its whole job is this to supply the headquarters. So I want this to work if that headquarters are no matter what, basically 0. What that means is I'm not setting a limit on the space required before that transport goes to pick it up. You know, if that headquarters needs 1 energy cell, it's going to be able to do it. Okay, it's going to go. If it was 5%, it wouldn't even leave until it was up to a certain amount. So I don't want that. I want it just to go if anything's needed. So I'm also going to change this to 0, because what that means is it's not going to, for instance, it's not going to do those energy cells. It's not going to drop them off unless it can drop off, unless the storage at the headquarters is let me say that. Yeah, basically, unless it won't be able to drop off that much or more. Okay, the way it works at it looks at it, basically your storage for the item at the headquarters is 95% or lower, is what that 5% was saying. But it's basically it's not going to deliver that item unless it can deliver 5% or more, or whatever number that you put there, or more at that station of the cargo hold, cargo space. Okay. Freighter cargo bay. Freighter cargo bay. That one is basically, it's saying don't go to any of the suppliers unless, because these look at I think the station cargo hold. This one is your ship cargo hold. So like, don't fly unless you can fill up a certain percentage. So what this is saying is don't fly unless you can fill up your whole cargo hold. I am setting that to 0 because I want it to go if something's needed no matter what. Okay, so I just hit that 0. Fly to supplier only. This one, actually, no, I'm sorry. Going back to this cargo bay. Going back to the cargo bay, you actually set it to 101, 101%, and what that does is it turns it off. That's what you want to put if you just don't, if you want that to not even use that option. Fly to supplier only. Basically, what it does is it's going the list of the suppliers that I put on there. Storage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. With fly to supplier only, with no means it's going to go in the order that I put those in. It's just going to go to 1 no matter what first, 2 no matter what first, and all that. If I hit yes, what it's going to do is it's actually going to go to all the suppliers on that list for whatever item it's looking for. It's going to go to the one that has the most of that item. Okay. And so really in my case, in my particular situation, I really don't care if it starts at 1 and then goes down the list or what. So I'm just going to leave that no. Dock with ship only in the same sector. If you had a ship that was one of the suppliers or consumers, what this is saying is if during the trip this transport's making out to that ship, if that ship goes to a different sector, do you want it to follow that ship into the different sector or not? And no means it will follow it. Yes means that you will only if that ship leaves the sector during the trip, it's not going to follow it. Okay, that's what that means. Wait for request signal. I really don't know how to. I don't know what that request signal means. Like, for instance, what it is like don't go to the headquarters unless the headquarters tells you it needs something. But I don't know how that works or anything like that. I've never used that, so I just leave that no. Quit working in home base. What that is like for this transport, if it's in the middle of transporting something, but I want to have it stop doing this task and really just set it up doing something completely different, maybe a universal trader or whatever. Then if I turn this to yes, what it's going to do is it's going to finish what it's in the middle of doing and then stop. It's not going to continue the automatic loop. Okay, but it will finish what it is in the middle of doing at the time. Okay, that's what that means, and that helps out. Like, instead of you stopping it manually and telling it to move somewhere in the middle of doing something, and it has a cargo hold full of stuff in the middle of dropping it off somewhere, if you use this to stop it, it will finish that task. So it won't have that cargo hold full of stuff, and you won't have to manually tell it. But it's up to you if you want to do that or not. Okay, so supply conditions is set. Jump drive, this is the same as anything else. I'm going to tell it yes, just because I tell all the ships yes on jump drives, and I give them all jump drives, even though this one's not going to leave the sector. It's just going to go between the storage stations and the headquarters. However, and then it's just habit. I always like to set this just in case, because if I do change the job of this one and it ends up going to different sectors, if I change it down the road, I want this already set. So I'm just going to go ahead and set it for the refill amount to be 1500, and that's just the same like you would do on a command console of any individual ship, where you set the auto jump feature to yes or no, and then like how many jumps to refuel the cells. This is the same way. It's instead of measured in jumps, it's measured in how many total energy cells you want it to go up to when it stops at a station that has energy cells. 1500. For this type of ship, that's 150 jumps. That's why I always do 150 or 1500. Minimum jump range, that's the same thing too. Basically, set at 1 means it's going to jump anywhere. Like if I set this to 2, what that means is if it wants to go to the one sector away or the next sector, it will fly there instead of using the jump drive. So that's all the same. Automatic naming, I think I may have mentioned that in prior videos, but basically you can have the pilot of this ship, like if you transfer to a new ship or whatever, it will set an automatic name for it, and you can set those parameters here if you wanted to do that automatically. I just manually do the name myself because some things change and I need to change the name and stuff like that. I just don't even use that myself. Configure reports. I do want all these reports on because I want to know if it's stopped for any reason, or I need to know if it's holding off because there's enemies in the sector. I want to know all that stuff. So I just have all that stuff set to yes. And then what you can do is, and this is data storage, just like anything, you can save the data in a data slot. So if you're going to have more than one ship doing this, you can set that up. Now, this is the only ship that's going to have these particular waypoints because the next ship is going to have different waypoints. So I'm not going to save this one. But that's where you would just load it up or save it or delete those data points. So now this one's all set up. All right. So I'm going to head and hit start.
Command accepted.
And now I'm going to go back into this command console, and I'm not going to, because right now it was hid from the menu. I'm going to not hide it from the menu, because whenever you start a new ship off doing something like this or station or whatever, I suggest watching it for a little bit to make sure it is doing what you want it to do. All right, because there's so many different options, and something like for instance on this particular setup, on the supply setting conditions, if I did the minimums 5% instead of 0%, because microchips are so small in volume, it may never transport microchips. And so, but you won't be aware of that unless you actually see it. You may become aware of that when you see your headquarters is not producing. Well, why is it not producing? Well, it doesn't have enough microchips. Why doesn't it have enough microchips? Well, then you have to look at the ship settings and stuff. But I already know it's not going to do microchips at 5%. So that's why I selected 0 on that. But that's just an example. You do whatever you want to set it up for. Just make sure it's doing what you want it to do. Don't assume that it's going to do what you want it to do. All right, because that would just lead to problems and frustration down the road. I mean, I don't mean like watch it every stop. You can, but just kind of be looking at it, checking it out, and seeing where it's going, what it's picking up in its bay, and all that stuff, until you know that it's doing exactly what you want it to do. So that one is set up and ready to go. I'm going to do the same thing for this one, but without explaining stuff, so it's going to be a little bit faster. Home base is set to the headquarters. Now I need to go to oh no, oops, I did not want the home base set to headquarters. I want the home base set to storage 12, and then I'm going to go into, it doesn't really matter which one of those storages, to be honest, but I'm going to go into trade. I'm going to go into internal. The trader settings I already know is correct. The home base products I need to add. I want to add all of these again. Energy Rastar or one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I missed something. Let's see here. Energy Teladium cloth Rastar. Okay, I got ore, silicon, crystals, or silicon, quantum tubes, the microchips. I forgot the microchips. Price 0. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Okay. So those are added. Going to suppliers and consumers. Suppliers, it's already 12. Want to add 11. Want to add 10. Want to add 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Okay, and that's 10. It will only allow me. The max is 10. Consumers, I'm adding my headquarters as the consumer. So that is set. Supply conditions, I want 0. I want 0. I want 101 to turn that one off. I don't care about the certain percentage that moving or not, depending on what I can pick up in its own freight bay. As far as I want it, if something needs to be done, I just want it done. Fly to supplier only, no. That one is no. Okay. Jump settings, yeah, 1500. Minimum 1 jump, that's good. Everything else is good, so I'm going to have it start.
Command accepted.
And I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to not hide it from menu so I can check it out. Okay, so now both of these are set up to go to the headquarters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and change, do its name. Well, actually, it's already in the name, station headquarters. I forgot I already did that. So I know that that's a station trader for the headquarters. Station trader for the headquarters. These I labeled just ST because they're going out NPC stations and all that all around. So they're just considered straight station traders to me. And then, of course, like I said, I number them just so it looks nice and neat and it's in order. So those are off and going. So what those are going to do is those are going to look at these wares that I've added, which are those, and they're going to look at. There's only one consumer, so it's just going to look here at this station. If I wanted more stations to drop off at, I can do that. Like for instance, if I had 2 of these player headquarters in this sector, I can have each one. I can add both as consumers, and I can have those ships going to both of those. For instance, I can just add it on that consumer list, up to 10 stops. But so what it's doing, it's looking at these limits. It's looking at what is actually there at the station. And then it's going to go ahead and pick up those products if it's needed, and come back here. Now, if we look here, if we look here, every item is at least is 100%. These ones that are over 100%, that was when I messed up and I set it up with MK2 software. Again, MK2 cannot look at these limits, so it's just going to keep on going until that 500,000 units is filled up. So don't use that. Use MK1, the internal, the setup I just showed you. So those, as ships are produced, though, it's going to use up those resources, so that will come down. However, the correct setup I've got now to supply these, it's not going to add over 100. Okay, so if I go to my ships, they should not be transporting if I set it up right. And if we go here, it's at storage 1 and it's on standby. This one here is headed to storage 12. By the way, whenever you start that logistics, it will always start at its home base first, and then it will start trading and looking at stuff. So this one's still headed to its home base, which is storage 12. And now it's at storage 12. And so both of these, right, because the headquarters is full, these should not be trading. And right now they are not trading. They are on standby. So it's good. Okay. So that is the internal Commodity Logistics MK1 setup. Okay, and again, because the player headquarters uses those dockware limits, it's not like other stations where there's already limits set for the amounts. You have to use that MK1 if you want to limit the amount of items by using that dockware manager. Okay, that's all good to go. So now what I'm going to do is, now that I've got those set up, I'm going to take this one I was doing just to make sure I got everything set up right, and I'm not going to do another video, and I'm not going to have mistakes like I did on the first attempt. So what I'm going to do now, though, it's on storage. You see that these were on storage, and what I did was this one. Well, this one is supplying my equipment dock, okay, with not the resource goods stuff like chips and ore and stuff, but with the shields and the guns and stuff from here. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up setting these two up for that dock as well. But let me show you the Commodity Logistics MK2 setup by using this ship, and then I'm going to just repeat, run some repeats off the video. So however, this one here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear out its orders. I also want to make sure that its freight bay, its freight bay doesn't have like Teladiadium or something from a trip prior. Okay, and I am going to go in here and I'm going to clear its home base. Clear home base setting. Right there. And so now it does not have a home base. And what I'm going to use this one for is I'm going to need, this is going to be showing you how I set these other ships up, buying from NPCs, and bringing that stuff into those storage stations. Okay, what I need to set up is 1 gigajoule shields for my bigger ships. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here, orders, command console, trade. Because I don't have a home station set, you don't see the internal commodity logistics and you don't see the commercial agent here, because for those you need a home base. But I'm not using those. I'm using external, the MK2. Okay. So trader settings, those are always the same. It's taking money from my global account. Waypoints, I do want to delete these whenever you do a new task for a ship. Always go in there and clear them out first. And the first stop on these, you always want to have it refuel its energy cells first. So I'm going to go tell it to go to the power plant the energy cells. Actually, that reminds me. Let me tell this sucker to. If I told it to go to the solar power plant from those storage stations, because of the way the docks are, because I didn't set it up right as far as the docking clamps, it would have to go from underneath those storage stations straight up to the solar power plant, and the AI does not do curves. It goes straight lines. So it's going to try to go through those stations up to the solar power plant, and it's going to crash and it's going to blow up. So what I just did is I just told it to go across to where my equipment dock is, so that when it leaves that equipment dock, it can go straight. It has a straight line to that solar power plant. And that's just because I placed it wrong. I forgot about that. Anyways, I'm going to go in here, go back to the waypoints, and I need to tell it the first stop is the power plant to refuel jump energy. Okay. Now I'm going to go out of here. By the way, the jump drive, yes, to use jump drive. When it goes there to get the energy, it's going to pick up whatever it needs to buy up or load up to 1500, and then the minimum range is 1. Now, depending on how many stops you set up and all that, you may want to have it have more, like for my microchips, because there's a lot of different stations that have microchips. I told it 3,500 instead of 1,500. So just keep that in mind, because you don't want it to be in the middle of the list of stops and run out of energy cells, and then it's flying instead of jumping. So just keep that in mind. But so now I've got it picking up energy cells from the solar power plant, and any of these that you set up, always do that first. Refill the cells first, so it has enough for the trip. Now, this particular one, I'm not going to manually put in stations to stop at to buy the 1 gigajoule shields. I'm going to use the generate waypoint. So this will generate, depending on the conditions I set here, it's going to add stops to the waypoint list that fit those parameters. So if I'm going to go in here, it's asking for a central sector to start from. So if I say, hey, I want you to look at 9 jumps away, it's going to go out from this sector that you select here. Okay, so I want to select this, and then it's going to say jump range. Now I want it to look all across the galaxy. I don't want to limit the distance that it looks at. So I'm typing in a big number, 400. I want this thing to look and buy the 1 gigajoule shields. Okay, so I selected that. The 1 gigajoule shields I want it to buy because it's going to go from an MPC station. If you do load or unload, that's like for obviously your own internal stuff. Buy and sells for the MPCs places. So I wanted it to buy those 1 gigajoule shields, and you can set a manual amount. You can do, or you can set a whatever price you want it to buy at. So like 1 gigajoule shields, I don't even know what the price is for 1 gigajoule shields, but you can just go ahead and do average price, which is the road price. So it would only buy if it's that price or lower. You can do minimum product price, so it would only buy if it's at the minimum, which means that station has to be completely stocked with that item. Now in my case, or you can set a manual price. In my case, I just wanted to pick up these things and supply my stuff. I've got plenty of money with my traders and stuff. I don't really care if I lose money on this. Okay, I just want to make sure I have it to supply the ships that I want to supply. So I'm just telling it maximum product price. So it's not going to be limited by the price. Now here's your cargo space. How much to pick up. Half your cargo space worth of 1 gigajoule shells. You can manually input a number for it to buy. You can say, hey, I want you to buy up to this amount of your cargo space, or you can do I never use this one, but it's saying half your cargo space. So like if my cargo space was 3,000, when it's looking at this, it will look at your cargo space as being only 1,500, and then it will buy up to the price that you enter. That's what that is. But I never use that. Again, I like to do 1 ships per item, or 1 ships per task, so that it's easy to troubleshoot if there's any issues. I don't need to look at, like if I had 5 ships doing these stations and doing all the items, then I would have to, if there's something wrong with one of the items being supplied or not supplied, I have to look at all the ships and all the options. So I try to keep it simple. I want this one just to go ahead and fill up all of its cargo room. I'm not going to have it do anything else or buy anything else. And I want it to look at the NPC stations. Okay, you can do all stations if I had a 1 gigajoule shield complex set up already. In that case, actually, I wouldn't even buy from the NPCs unless I really needed it for some special reason. But in this case, I don't have a factory, so I'm doing buy from the NPCs. So now, if you see here, my first stop, the power plant, it's going to refuel. That's still on there. And then from these on, it generated those waypoints looking at the parameters I set. Okay. So now those are all the stations within that range that have 1 gigajoule shield, that offer to sell 1 gigajoule shields. It doesn't mean that all these stations have that 1 gigajoule shield in stock. It just means that these are all the stations that have that as an option to sell to me. Okay. And so now when it goes through all the travels in the universe, I want it to go ahead and I want it to drop those off at these storage stations. Okay. So I'm going to start with storage station 1. I'm going to tell it to unload those 1 gigajoule shields, and all of them. Okay. And I'm going to do that for every station, because if this station's full, I want it to look at this station. If this station's full, I want it to look at this station, and so on. Okay. So I'm going to add this for every station, every storage station. Unload 1 gigajoule shields, maximum cargo. Add number 4. Unload 1 gigajoule shield, maximum. Yeah, that was 4. So number 5, unload 1 gigajoule shield, maximum. We got 6, unload 1 gigajoule shield, maximum. 7, same thing. 8,
incoming message,
same thing. 9, same thing, and so on and so forth. So this is I know this is boring stuff, but it's like I've mentioned before, once you have things set up, then it's done. You know what I mean? Once I have all these set up, let's see, did I skip one? No, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Once this is set up, then it's done, and it's going to go on automatically for the rest of the game until I tell it to do something different. So that initial effort, like I've mentioned many times before, that initial effort makes things valuable and important, which it really does. But once things are set up, you're good to go. So now it's going to start at storage station 1, then look at 2, and look at 3, and on down the line through 12, to unload those 1 gigajoule shields if there's space. Okay. Now once that's done, once it unloads its goods, the first setting here is that solar power plant to refuel. So what it's going to do is it's going to loop, like once it's at the bottom of the list, it's going to loop back up. And that first stop is to refuel solar cells from that solar power plant. But because of the placement, again, of the solar power plant, I messed up. I don't want it to go from the storage station straight up, trying to go through the storage stations, because it's going to crash and it's going to blow up. So I'm just going to tell it to fly across the way, across where I got my equipment dock, and just fly there real quick, and then go from that equipment dock to this station. And that's only because I have the placement of the solar power plant. I forgot about that, and because you basically, when you place stations, you want to make sure that straight lines are available for the AI, or if there's something in the line of sight in that straight line, it's probably, it doesn't guarantee it's going to crash, but it's highly likely, the chances go way up that it's going to crash and blow up. So I'm going to tell it to go across the way, and then from there go back up to the solar power plant, and then just go through the list again. Now, because all these stations are on the list, doesn't mean it's going to stop at every single one. It's only going to stop at the ones that have 1 gigajoule shields to buy. Okay. Yeah. So now all the points are set. Supply conditions, I tell this 0, because I don't want any cargo limits or any limits. If there's one that needs to be filled, I want it to go pick it up. Okay. That's just me, though. Now, if you've got ships, doing more than one thing, like I've got this ship doing one thing, but if you got ships doing more than one thing, then you probably will want to have this set, because if say that I'm having it do energy cells and I don't know, from HQ or whatever, like just an example, energy cells and ore. Well, if I've got this 0, and if there's one energy cell that's needed to be transferred, it will transfer that. But it may be completely out of ore. You know what I mean? So you may want to hide that at 5 or 10%, so that if there's only 1 or 100 energy cells needed versus you're completely out of ore, it's going to go to the ore and not do that energy cells until it can get enough and up to that amount that you do. So that's useful for that. But for what I'm using it for, I just do 0. Jump drive I already set. Yes, I did. And that's all good to go. This one, though, I'm going to save. I'm going to save this one as 1 gigajoule shields. The reason why I'm saving these guys is because they are going out in the universe. And let's say this ship gets blown up. All I need to do is take another Gazanti transport ship and then go down and just load that one, and it will have the same settings as this ship, so I don't have to go through that all over again, okay, if that ship gets blown up. So that's why I'm saving that one on the list. And as you see, I mean, I did save the E cells that go to the stations. Like I saved all those that are going, you know, because I don't want to, if that ship blows up, I don't want to have to go through all that again. So anyways, that's saved. Go ahead and start.
Command accepted.
So now that particular ship is, I'm going, oh shoot, you know what I forgot? I forgot one thing. I'm going to tell it to stop. I forgot on the waypoints, before going to those storage stations, see at storage 1, okay? Before going there, actually I wanted to stop at the equipment dock and fill that up first, because these storage stations are more for like overflow and storage. So what I need to do is I need to add to drop off 1 gigajoule shields at the equipment dock first, before this one, and after it buys it or looks at this station to buy it. So what I'm going to do is down here at the bottom, I'm going to add station. I'm going to add the fleet dock. I call it fleet dock. It's an equipment dock, but I just named it fleet dock. And unload the 1 gigajoule shields, all of it if it needs to. Now the thing is I added that, it's on the bottom. So what I need to do is I need to go here to cut or remove, and I'm going to cut it. It's way too hot, you need to cut it. And then up here, where it says, now that I have something cut, it says there's an option for insert station. It's always going to be inserted in the space after the one that you're selecting. So because I'm selecting this one, it's going to go at number, like you see, this is number 36. When I insert this, it's going to go to number 37. It won't insert it in this slot and push it down. It will insert it after that slot. So I'm going to go ahead and insert that. Oops. And then go down here, and I just want to make sure. So once it's at the last station to buy here, it's going to go and try to unload first at the fleet dock, which that's exactly what I want to do. And then if that's full, then it's going to go to storage 1 and on down. So in that case, now I do want to go ahead and save that again as 1 gigajoule. All right, so now it is all set, and I want to tell it to go. And then what I'm going to do is I go in here and I want to change the name, because this is no longer dealing with headquarters. What this is dealing with is supplying the dock with shields for the ships. So it's going to my fleet dock, and it's doing the 1 gigajoule shields. That's why I just label it that way. So I know exactly what it's doing. And so that's how you would set up the Commodity Logistics MK2, the external. Okay, if you want to like buy from NPCs. Now I had it generate waypoints because I want it to go everywhere that it's available. But you can select, of course, manually just you know, if you wanted to go to 1 or 2 or whatever docks, you can actually that whole list, you can manually enter every one of those stops if you wanted to. Instead of generating it. Now, also, when it generates those stops, it does list them in a pretty good geographical order. So you're not going from point A, jumping across the galaxy to point B, and then and then jumping across back, and then back and forth. Now, it may go like down here, then down here, and then may go up a little bit to get to someplace, and then back down here. And then, but in general, it really does do it in a nice order, so you're not wasting energy cells. Just so you know. But yeah, so that's how you set up the internal commodity logistics MK1 for your player headquarters, and the external commodity logistics MK2 for dealing with NPC stations. And to show you the way I've got my logistics set up, those MK2s are going out buying from NPCs, going and depending on the item, if it's for the player headquarters, they go straight here to the storage. If it's an item for ships like guns and stuff like that, I have it look at the equipment dock first to fill that up, and then the overflow here at the storage stations. Now for the player headquarters, once those ships drop off stuff here at the storage stations for the player headquarters, those 10 resource items, then I have those 2 suppliers using the commodity logistics MK1, actually home based here at the storage stations, but it's trying to look at these and push those off to the player headquarters if the player headquarters is not fully stocked on that item, up to the limit that I set in the dockware manager, and only the MK1 or commercial agents, but only the MK1 will be able to see those limits and use those limits. MK2 will not see those limits and will just keep on automatically unloading and filling up your cargo space. So I think second time is a charm. I think I got that right, and I am going to talk about commercial agents in the next part, because what I'm going to do is, the way I've got my ships, basically the headquarters builds a ship, okay? I have it go to the equipment dock to equip it, okay? And I've got those supply ships I just showed you supplying that equipment dock, keeping it stocked. But like my fighters, it would it'd be produced at my headquarters, fly to the fleet dock to be equipped, and then I fly it here to OTOS headquarters to get a jump drive. And then I jump it here to the equipment dock to get the rest of the equipment in the cargo bay and speed and rudder upgraded. And then I jump it over here to Home of Light to get a transporter. Okay. However, when you're dealing with fighters with small cargo space, it doesn't have enough energy cells to make that trip and then also go back to my sector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a solar power plant here in this sector. So once they buy that transporter at the TerraCorp station, it can refill back up on energy cells to jump back at my solar power plant that's in here. So what I'm going to do next part is I'm going to buy that. I'm going to lay that solar power plant down there, and I'm going to set up a commercial agent for that station. So what it will do is it will buy crystals to supply that, because that plant needs crystals to produce the cells, and then it will also be set up to sell those energy cells. So I can make it's not going to be a lot of money because it's small dollar amounts with energy cells, but it will sell those at a profit. So even if it's a couple credits per deal, you know, at least it's doing something. So I'm going to show that in the next part. Okay. All right. Thank you guys.